Ashley. Welcome, Paul. Kevin here. Thanks for having your camera on, Ashley. Helps me be able to see if people are understanding what in the world I'm saying. Always appreciated. Excellent. Looks like we got everybody coming back in here too. Seeing Kevin and Michael. Thank you guys for having your cameras on, those that do. So that way it helps me be able to see, is everybody picking up whatever I'm laying down at that time. So really, really great to have you guys on video so I can see what's going on. So great, guys. So this is the part that we will end up sharing what it is that we heard from our group of what was powerful. What did we learn from our colleagues here? What did we learn from our teammates about what was powerful for them through their journey to and their journey into financial freedom. So the process here, guys, is to raise your hand if you'd like to speak. I'll go ahead and call on you. When I call on you, you'll unmute your mic. So wait for a couple of people that want to share about what they heard inside of their meetings, that they want to share from their colleagues or their teammates about what was powerful for them on their path to financial freedom. So go ahead and click the reactions button at the bottom of the page. Go ahead and raise your hand if you have something that you'd like to share that you learned about from your group there. All right, we got Joey and Russ, first ones to share today. Thanks, guys. It'd be great to hear from you. So go ahead and unmute yourself. And what did you guys hear today? What was powerful from your teammates?
Yes, we got to talk to Brennan and his wife. And I think one of the things that came up in that discussion was just working within your area of expertise. And, you know, whether you're someone who thinks critically toward projects and tasks and can then go hands on those areas so that you could learn. So Brennan and his wife have found out, you know, how to manage the tax equation. It seems like that's probably an area they have an expertise in. And through the learning of that has been able to navigate the tax code in a way that's been useful to them, clearly in accelerated depreciation and other areas that they're able to maximize not only their real estate professional designations, but to be able to put more money in their pocket, keep more of what they make. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Very cool. So really focusing in on what are your areas of expertise, leveraging into your strengths, and particularly looking at powerful for them was hearing about the tax, what tax strategies they're going to do. And maybe the tax is actually informing what are the important investments I need to make once I factor in those tax considerations. Here and there. Awesome. Cool. Thank you, Russ, for that. Who else would like to share? Someone that they heard in that group that they said they want to call out and say, hey, I heard something that was somebody shared in there that was powerful for them in their journey there to financial freedom. That's what we got. Looks like Gilbert is ready to share. Go ahead, Gilbert, and lower your hand, unmute yourself. And what did you hear?
I think, you know, for my group, they're looking at, you know, real estate investment and here building up their passive income to get them to that goal of financial freedom. Of course, financial freedom is going to mean different things for different folks. And so that's what members of my group are working on is build a little bit more real estate portfolio, get their passive income flowing in and maybe some active income, but that way they'll reach that goal.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Gilbert. So if I was hearing you right, then it's for them, it was about like, hey, it's really about the assets. It's my real estate investing, finding out about how real estate investing, that type of investment can help me get to financial freedom was really powerful for them. Probably they didn't know about that before, of course, until they did. And now it sounds like they're hooked and thinking, man, maybe I need to make more money so I can buy more real estate. You know, who in here has felt like that? You know, that's me as much as everybody else. Excellent. Great. Well, thank you guys for the shares so far. And let's go ahead and queue up the video that Joey and Russ and myself have made and talking a little bit about this path to financial freedom here. So Anne, if we could go ahead and play that. And this installment, I am, of course, Scott Royal Smith. I'm the owner of Royal Legal Solutions. I'm here with Joey and Russ. They are the owners of Wealth Without Wall Street. I've been having a great conversation with Joey and Russ so far. What they have put together here, guys, is something that I think you're going to find absolutely incredible as a real estate investor, as an entrepreneur. They spent the last 2.5 years actually developing their own community with organized resources around and create training courses, etc. That has everything to do with like the money side. So as much as on RLS, how we're really focused on all the operational tactics and all of the soft skills that it takes to be able to accomplish financial freedom. Joey and Russ have done a great job of diving into a lot of the nitty gritty, as well as being able to have a fantastic journey to walk everybody through in a step-by-step basis of what are the things you need to focus on first, second, third, fourth, what are the networks of people that you're going to need along the way, and done a fantastic job walking through that. And they have a fantastic app that's about that we'll be talking about on today's show. So Joey and Russ, thank you so much for coming onto the show. And I was wondering if we could just start off the show with like a little bit of background of what you guys would think of important for the audience to know about you guys individually, and what is it important about Wealth Without Wall Street that made you commit years of your life to develop that community and develop those resources for everyone.
Well, I'll say this, Scott. By the way, it's a privilege to be on a like-minded person's show. We love spending time with people who are gaining and looking for financial freedom. And basically Wealth Without Wall Street is born out of my personal story. And it just comes down to, I was stuck with a bad mindset around what true financial success looked like. And secondly, I didn't have a good pathway to follow until Russ and I really kind of discovered a book that he sold me. And by the way, Scott, he's super cheap. Like Russ is ridiculously cheap. Even he came to me, he said, Joey, I want to start referring you business, because I was in the mortgage business at the time. I want to start referring you clients, but you got to read this book. And by the way, it's $20. And I was like, dude, I mean, you must be really struggling, like to charge me $20 for a stupid book. Like, I mean, what the heck? But he knew that I was actually cheaper than him, and I would have to pay for something in order to pay attention. So I'm grateful. But long story short, I was growing a higher income in the mortgage business, but I was losing the thing that was most important. That was my family, my time, my freedom. It was constantly getting taken away the higher that income went. And subsequently learned these things working with Russ after reading the $20 book, and turned my light bulb on that, man, passive income is truly the means to the end of financial freedom. And so after 4 years of being involved, working with him as a client, I walked away from my career making over $300,000 a year, and decided, man, we need to get this word out. And that's how Wealth Without Wall Street was born, is he and I joined forces and started just basically telling the story.
That's a pretty fantastic little kismet over there to join in,
No doubt.
And Russ. Like Russ, can you share with us a little bit about like what was important to you like when you were thinking about that, of like, hey, why to sell this book, why to take this kind of approach with helping people in that particular way? What made you want to do it that way?
Well, again, it was a picture, not a book, that I sold him. I was trying to make a lot of money, and so I sold him. This is a pencil picture, and I required $20, and it just taught him how to think about what all goes into business. No, that's not true at all. But I'd actually been, Scott, a certified financial planner. I've been the typical probably advisor that many of you have probably met over the years, meaning that I knew nothing about money. I was mostly a sales guy, and I was I was an expert all the way until the market crashed, like everybody, right? And Joey and I were having this conversation that he was speaking of in late 2009, early 2010. It was only after I'd gone through the market crash, had no idea what it caused it. None of the people that I, looked up to in the investment advisory world knew why it happened or what was going to keep it from happening again. And at this conference, I'm sitting there listening to, at the time, he was kind of a mid-70s-year-old gentleman, and he speaking with this Southern drawl that I related to, being from Alabama, and he's talking about how, you know, access to cash is the number one struggle that people face to be financially free, because they've been taught to give their money away and put it in things that were illiquid. And he's just talking really simple terms that I could understand, being a public school graduate. And I thought, this makes so much sense. Why hadn't I really observed this before? And so I buy a copy of his book. I read it on the flight back from Orlando, Florida. I finished the book. The book, by the way, is called Becoming Your Own Banker. And it's this really easy, simple idea, but just using a financial tool that I, as a certified financial planner, had always been told was a bad idea, which was dividend paying life insurance. But when I'm reading through this book, I'm thinking, this makes so much sense. And I was in the process of the company I was at. I also had a mortgage company which shut down with all the regulations and stuff like that was going through that time. And so that's when I'd go to my friend Joey over here, and I was like, hey, I need to start referring mortgage people to you, because one of the things I always was taught to do, and I still think it's a good idea, is to better understand the tool, which is our home mortgage, and how to minimize our cash flow in it, because building equity in a house is not a great place for money to be stored. And I just didn't want to send people over to him and then him start telling them about this great 15-year mortgage that he has, you know, and doubling their payment.
Yeah.
And so when I said, like, okay, well, this is a book I need him to read so he'll understand the context. And if I give it to him for free, he probably won't read it. So I charged him. Thankfully, he was a great student. He read it. He challenged me on a lot of other ideas. But what came out of that, Scott, is that I realized that my job was not to be the easy button for people. Like I had up to that point been the place where people would just go and give their money in hopes that I would then help them build, you know, this large 7-figure nest egg inside of their retirement account, and they would ride off into the sunset at age 72 and a half or whatever that looked like. And I realized that wasn't a good idea, that really I needed to be equipping people how to be better investors. And in order to do that, I had to figure out how to be a good investor myself, because like most financial advisors, I wasn't buying the things I was selling, right? I wasn't putting my money into those same accounts. You know, one, I didn't have tons of it. I was spending a bunch of it at the time, and I didn't believe in it, right? And so I had to become a good investor myself, and it required me to, one, put my money in a place that I could access it. And ultimately, through the process of doing that and seeing this kind of play out in my family's life, and watching Joey get fired up about it and leaving a job that he was making over $300,000 a year in to come help me. I don't know if that was a good testimony or, you know, really more pointed toward how bad I was at getting the word out, that he thought that he could do a better job. But that was kind of the genesis to our story that allowed us, since, you know, 2014, 2015, we started working together for the last 6-7 years, where, you know, our goal has been able to break to break people out of financial prison, to get them in a place where financial freedom doesn't equal, you know, some big nest egg in a retirement account. It's passive income greater than your monthly expenses. It's just that simple. And it's just amazing every time we have somebody in our community that tells us that, you know, they now have the ability to walk away from their job. Some of them do, some of them don't, right? And the beauty is that they have the ability to, if they want to.
I was wondering about that, like, and you know, shifting that from you about, you know, actually helping people place investments to like looking at how can they think differently, right? Yeah. Through how do they approach financial freedom? I'm sure over the number of years and how many students that you guys have worked with, that this has really come down into like a step-by-step kind of science. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, we probably wouldn't have said that initially, because we didn't know. We were kind of still figuring it out. And I say that I was kind of like the guinea pig. Like, my story is really ultimately what turned into our 3-step process. And that was coming up with a goal, like having a very clear vision of what financial freedom looked like for me, having a plan then to get specific about what sort of investor I am, and then getting the support to get me on that last mile to get to financial freedom. So those are really the 3 steps we walk people through now. And again, it took some organizing, because Russ and I aren't that smart. but we just knew what we had accomplished and wanted to share it with other people. And as Russ mentioned, man, just seeing people be transformed from confusion and, a lack of a plan to confidently being on a process that will lead to financial freedom. It's just, there's really no comparison when you look at those two people side by side, just how cool it is to see them on the other side of it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm wondering, when you get, through each of those stages, it sounds like there's like a vision step, a plan step, and then there's a support step that comes with it. When people are trying to determine like what a vision looks like, what kind of challenges do they typically run into that on their path to go from without a vision to a clear vision?
I think one is just actually spending the time to do it, right? Like this is not, revolutionary in its basic form, that you come up with, who do you want to be? What do you need to do? And what do you want to have when you're going to be financially free? What are the things that you need to stop doing, right? So I think first it's actually taking the time to do it. We've built out a process. We refer to it as our passport challenge. And we say challenge because we know it's going to not only challenge you to do something that you're not naturally doing, but also it's going to challenge you to think differently. And one of the questions that's in there is, what's the one thing that you're going to stop doing to become financially free? And so we kind of walk them through some different processes and let them kind of observe some things. And I would say for most people, the answers that we hear out of that is, I'm going to stop contributing to my employer sponsored 401k. And that's the thing that going into it, before they ever started, they would have said, this is the one thing I enjoy the most because I get for most people, I get a match or whatever. But when they observe what's really happening with money and the fact that their money no longer is accessible and they're trading this match and their money that creates the match for being stuck at work for another 20 or 30 years, they realize how that is not aligned with their ultimate objective to be financially free. So I think challenging their thinking is a really big obstacle for people, but also just being much deeper in its concept. And what I mean by that is that, if I'm just walking down the street and I come up to you, Scott, and I say, hey, what, if you were financially free tomorrow, right? Meaning that you could walk away from your job, you got more income coming in than you have expenses, and you don't have to go to work. What would you do? What would they give you the ability to do? And initially, the responses that most people who have not done the thoughtful, research that I'm sure you have, will say, oh, well, I will be spending time on the beach, or I would be, taking my kids fishing, or going to the lake, or, traveling with my spouse across the world, or whatever it looks like, right? And those are really just the pressure relief valve that, because we're so bottled up, the first thing we can think of is escape, like get out. But the reality is that's what an ideal day looks like, not an ideal lifestyle. Because at some point in time, living out of a suitcase, traveling the world is going to get really old. Like, we're no longer 21 years old backpacking across Europe here. Like, that's just not very interesting to me, to sleep in a lot of other beds, all, constantly back to back to back. Like, that environment is not conducive to me being healthy, nor is going fishing every single day, even though I love to fish. It's just not what I want to do every single day, 365 days a year. So then that challenges people to think about, what would I do? Once I get past the initial escape route, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? Like, if I was 35 years old and I broke free for 2 months and did all those fun things I've always wanted to do in life that I've been hampered and haven't been able to do, and now I can do that, what would I do after that 2 months for the rest of my life? And that's the part that I think most people have not considered, but our process challenges them to do and to think about, what will I have? And the have is not always just tangible things, right? It's thinking about, like, am I building a lifestyle that my children's children can take advantage of? And what does that look like? If I built core values out that if I did leave a bunch of money to them, would it be more than just money, or would it be a set of rules and, a set of thoughts that could benefit them and allow them to multiply it as well?
And I would say, just to his point, Scott, is let's be real. Most people have never given themselves a chance to dream about what true freedom looks like. Now, I think people that listen to your show already have an idea of what freedom looks like, that they're seeking it through real estate in some way, shape, or form. But the vast majority of people that you meet on the street, they literally have given up on anything other than what they default to every day. They get up, they get ready, they go to work, they clock in, they clock out, they go home. They just do it over and over, and they just are hoping at some point that they can stop doing that. But they literally don't have a plan. They don't have a dream of what it looks like. And they certainly don't have people surrounding them who are helping them to see the way out. And so, anyways, I think that's the biggest challenge facing people from the vision standpoint.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. So it sounds like with vision, you're having to come up against a lot of stuff, right? Which is, how do you even create a vision for your future when your mind and your mentality is still stuck in whatever it is, like the whirlwind that you're living in, like day to day, right? You can see the pressure relief valve because those are the things that you're already doing. But if you actually removed all of the pressure, then what is life like, right?
Exactly.
What do I have? Who am I being? What are the skills that I'm doing? Where am I at? Who am I associating with? Like all of those kinds of questions that maybe we don't spend enough time looking at. So when you guys are looking at vision, sounds like you're also looking at like dreamlining, right? Like what's my dream lifestyle? What's my dream relationship with my family? What's my dream enrichment, personal enrichment of how am I growing as an individual? Like all that type of thinking. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. And I was just going to say the other part that is really interesting, we get into in the plan step more of this, but the other thing that we really feel specifically called to do is to help people to discover who it is that they were meant to be. And ultimately, like if you're just surviving right now, you're just going through that motion that I mentioned. You're just kind of trying to figure out, day to day how to survive. You definitely are not operating in who God made you to become. And there's a bigger issue here than just your own personal happiness, like on the day to day basis. It's, man, you were given specific traits, specific strengths, and even weaknesses for a reason that you can then reflect God's glory to the world. And if you're constantly in financial jail, which is what we say most people are stuck in, either knowingly or unknowingly, then you really cannot become the person that you're meant to be. And so anyways, that's a big calling for us as to why we would spend so much time helping other people get here, is that, man, we want to see people operating in that unique genius that God's created you to become. And that does take some time to figure out, who am I really? And you have to dream towards that. So I just wanted to mention that. Russ, you were going to say something else probably, but
I've already forgotten it. This is what he does to me. He just starts talking and I forget. I kind of tune him out.
I'll tell you, there's a piece in here too that I just wanted to emphasize that I was picking up on, which is, there's like a zone of genius, right? There's like that few things that we do that are truly exceptional, right? And then there's a bunch of stuff that everybody asks of us to do, right? Maybe none of those things are actually in our true genius. But like the freedom gives you that ability to explore the genius. And I'm wondering too, is if like that actually goes into one of the topics we were talking about, Russ, with talking about like your investor DNA, like in part of your vision and creating like this next step we're talking about here with the plan is saying like, great, well, we actually really need to understand like, what is your makeup? So it says like, what type of investments are you going to feel more comfortable with? Or, in the same vein of like, okay, how you're made up actually determines what your vision is for, like you're more expansive than just your finances. But when it comes into finances, that's actually like your investor DNA looking at you. Are you more of an in and out kind of person? Are you more of like a set it and forget it and I don't want to think about it? That kind of piece too. Is that fair to say that those are the kinds of things that all have to be considered when creating the plan?
Yeah, so we'd say that kind of third step or that second step is trying to figure out, what is that plan or what's that path that I'm going to take in order to become financially free. And part of that is building infrastructure. Part of that is figuring out the passive income sources. the part that we all want to jump to or tend to want to jump to is the shiny object. Like we feel like we're going to solve a problem with a tool, a product. And oftentimes it's a process is what we need first. And I feel like, the financial world had taught me to sell products. And many of us have experienced that when we go and we talk to somebody and we share our problem, like, here's where I'm stuck. And they go, oh, here's your solution, buy this, right? And we're like, wait a second. And many of us try it and it doesn't work. And then we get frustrated and we say, well, that doesn't work. Well, it's not the tool's fault, right? We just didn't know how to use it. A hammer can do two things. It can create or it can destroy. We got to understand how to use things properly. So for us, we wanted to make sure we didn't start talking about the investments, but more importantly, how to equip an investor. And we didn't know exactly how to do that, Scott. So when we first started this process, we said, look, there's things that you and I have tried over the years, and some of them have been successful, some of them haven't. What is the reason why some were successful and some weren't? Not just the tool, right? It wasn't the tool's problem, unless I was referring to Joey as the tool. It is more importantly about the actual process. And so we went through, and Joey and I love taking different personality tests. A lot of times it tells us we have multiple, but for, the whole concept of there is understanding the way that we see the world and we interact with it. So Joey and I took one of the personality assessment tools that is out there and combined that with a financial bent. So not only, am I extroverted, but how then does that extrovertedness tend to play out in wanting to invest in things? So we went through and we took 6 of the many different things that we've been putting money in over the years. So this is not comprehensive in any scope, right? There's hundreds of thousands of investments, but we wanted to say, okay, how does my specific personality style, both my primary trait and my secondary trait, look at this specific thing? So does it look at it like, oh, this one potentially is more hospitality focused, it builds teams, it interacts with people, that jives with my extrovertedness, right? But then also, will this thing be scalable, right? Will this thing require more time? Will this require more money? What will be the needed things that maybe I can give or I can't give? So then we get into some of the cons, and we want to look at what those items are. Like, what will be the thing that will prevent me from making it successful? Well, it requires systems to run the business. And if I'm not a very organized individual and operator, like you said, you bring a lot of the systems and operational part to the table. If I don't have that, should I pursue this type of opportunity, or should I find a partner in the deal that would then make that a good fit? A lot of times investments get to really focused on risk, and risk is relevant. Risk is relevant to your ability to actually influence the outcome, right? The lower your ability to influence the outcome, the higher the risk naturally is, right? The lower the returns if you can't, the higher returns if you can. So we wanted to take that sort of context and put it in there. So then people, as they're going through this process, and if they're an analytical, they see, oh, well, this may require things that I would not be good at, like dealing with people, or this may require me to be overlooking some of the inefficiencies of, the supply chains that exist within this business structure, if it's e-commerce or whatever it may be. And I think it's given people just for instance, I had a conversation today with a guy, and he was just telling me, hey, my wife and I did the investor DNA. We have a really clear plan of what we're doing, and we're just following that process. And we're moving right along, and we've just acquired some more real estate because of it, because that matched our DNA. But also it told me that maybe the business I'm in, I shouldn't become the owner. He was getting ready to make an offer, and he said, but based upon what I learned about myself in this, is that I need to maybe steer clear of some of the things that would require parts of my investor DNA that I just don't have. And I just don't think it maybe would be a wise choice. So those are things that go into that process that help people maybe narrow the focus, because that's the hard part, right? We usually get so many ideas and we don't know which one to choose. Narrow the focus, and then let them see from their personality style what would be the pros and cons to it.
That's awesome. So you get to go through, so working with you guys too has like, we go through like some assessment phase on like trying to figure out like what's that vision for the future. Let's look at some of these tools like the investor DNA to be able to say, let's narrow that focus down, and then let's like start working to create a plan about like, okay, what's that? Now we have a clear vision. We can get now a plan that says put together of like, here's the types of investments that I think I should be making. In here too, I'm going to bet along that process too comes like, hey, I'm really getting flagged with a lot of the knowledge I don't have that's coming with it. Like, what are the gaps in my knowledge, and maybe the gaps that are in like the network of who else that I know that's on the similar journey that I'm going on that I can talk to and interact with. And I was wondering if on that third stage for you guys, which is about like the community and the support, there, what have you guys put together to help investors with that community and support, and identifying the gaps in education and the types of people that they can be connected with to help them accelerate their path to that journey, since you guys aren't helping everybody one-on-one, right?
Yeah. So as you kind of alluded to initially, is that we have built a community around this whole idea of financial freedom, because there's so few of us that actually have a local support group of people that are committed to helping us get what we would call the last mile, right? So if you've got that goal, you've got a vision of what financial freedom looks like, and you've got a plan, sometimes the hard part is that last mile of that marathon that you're running, and having somebody to kind of come alongside you to help you find those gaps in your knowledge, and to, like you said, to plug them. And so we have an inner circle within our community that people join. They get a group coaching twice a week. They also get one-on-one with a coach to go through those gaps. And in some cases, it is bringing in a network of people to help them grow in that path that they're already looking for, whether it be in land flipping or in short-term rentals or whatever it may be, having the experts to come alongside them and give them the education. One quick example would be one of our clients came back and he said, man, I got exposed to this idea through your podcast and through the inner circle about, how to invest in myself. And he said, I was about to make this purchase of a rental property. And when I went to, I also simultaneously learned about this education in the multifamily space. And I decided, instead of putting the down payment on that single family house, to invest in this kind of mastermind around multifamily. He said, now fast forward a year later, he has over 240 doors in the multifamily space. And he said, it was all because I stopped and I invested in myself to learn a skill and to be around other people in a place that I didn't have a whole lot of experience or understanding. But now I'm on this path, this trajectory that is hundreds of times higher than I would have been if I had just kind of bought this single family property that I thought that was the only thing I could do. So that's the value of support. That's the value of community and exposure to ideas and things like that you get by working through our process.
Awesome. I mean, I think that the having the community and having like the guidance from the community about where do you start making investments, whether in yourself or making assets, like you are your own best asset, right?
No doubt.
And that becomes like a critical factor, I think. And a lot of times people don't think about that when they're looking at their P&L. That's about like, okay, what's actually behind all of this? Well, it's actually a person that's having to make all these decisions, right? And how much are we invested in that? And it comes into it. So I love the holistic approach that you guys take with that. And before, I know we talked about, people coming into the wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/passport as a place to be able to enter in to have those first initial steps with making a relationship with you guys. I was wondering, is that right? Is that the place you want to go? You want everybody to go to?
Yeah, for sure. That will be not only an entry into the community, because whenever you go to that, it's going to give you free access to our community where everything that we do is housed there. That's where we interact. So you can actually DM us. You can say, hey, I heard you on the podcast, and we'd love to know that. That's really cool. But also, the first step within there is pointing you to take that passport challenge, which is that first step that we talked about a second ago, how to get a crystal clear goal so that when you finish that, you have a visual. If it's all right, I'll share my screen. Those who are watching this live or the recording of it can go in and see kind of what that looks like. But this is just one of our clients. They shared it with us what their passport challenge looked like once they completed all the steps. And if you're just listening, it goes through what they wanted for their family when they basically answering that question for themselves at the top, which is, when I stop trading time for money, I'll be able to. And we asked them to fill that out last because we want them to go through those 3 steps of be, do, have, and what do they want to do within each one of those, so that when they finish, they fill out this passport, and it's a visualization. It's something that most of them have showed us that they either print it out and they put it, on their mirror, in their bathroom, or a lot of them have actually just saved this as their backdrop, as their screensaver. And so by being able to, have that access, that going to wealthwhilewallstreet.com/passport, this is the thing that you can have, this very tangible. And that was definitely where we would love to interact with you and others in there. Scott, I know that you are joining and participating in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I saw what you guys were doing here, and this looks like exactly like something that I had been envisioning, in the wee hours of the mornings and late at night, being like, man, something like this needs to exist, about like what it is. And it's awesome to see that you guys have already spent years actually honing down a really particular process with it. With, I think it's like over 5,000 members that you have inside of that community right now, right? So it's a large community of people, and it's been over a course of a number of years having success with that, which makes me think like, wow, this is absolutely something that's worth the time to invest a few hours to go check it out even more deeply than I have right now. And I think everybody else should too. I think I'd recommend everybody go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/passport and just take those initial steps, because those initial steps of getting really clear around the be, do, have are exceptionally important. It starts to guide your unconscious thinking into how your decision making is aligning up with the most essential things to you. And I think you guys heard Russ here mention, like, well, some people even put it on their mirror. And you might be like, that's some weird stuff to do. But honestly, it's the only way that you can start to program your subconscious mind to remember to think about something. And you'll start to find yourself, if you do this, you'll start to find yourself having considerations of what choices you're going to make. And then you'll start referencing back to the picture and your own mind, be like, oh, that actually doesn't line up with what I'm really after. So you don't get caught like Russ might be with a shiny object, right? And whatever the case might be. Helps you keep focused, but it helps you keep focused at a fundamental level that doesn't cost you any extra work, because you just have it up. And that's an awesome tool that you guys are going to get for free just by going to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/passport and going to check that out into there. So I would recommend everybody go there right now. And then Joey, Russ, any final words before we wrap up?
I'll end based on kind of what we started talking about. And that is, have the confidence and to dream. Like this is not a 30-year time frame that you are shackled to, of becoming retired, right? Retirement, it means to be taken out of service. And to be honest, if you're listening to this show at this point, you are meant for much bigger things than to be taken out of service. So what can you do today to change the trajectory in the next 2 to 3 years? I mean, we have multiple people that in 18 to 24 months have gained their freedom back and have made decisions not to go back to become a school teacher or to continue as a school teacher, or to allow their wife not to go back to work as a nurse, and so they can focus on building their family, whatever it may be for you. Like, give yourself the license right now to dream about the fact that this is possible and what it might look like for you. And we want to support you any way we can, because as Russ and I talk about, man, we are really kind of just two beggars trying to teach other beggars where to find the bread. That's really all this is about. So Thank you for the opportunity to share our story.
And I would say, I'm sitting here, Scott, I'm looking at my vision board, the thing that I created, my passport at the beginning of the year, and it's ever more present. There's images on there that are choking me up because in this year I lost my father. One of my things was to be a better son, to be a better brother, and to think about another one on there is around my family, spending more time with them. And this week I took my oldest daughter to go visit a college campus. And I'm just like, like time is so precious. It's so precious. And there's nothing more urgent in my mind to focus on and more important to focus on than finding ways that we can create financial freedom so that we can do what Joey said. And also that we don't lose the time, because when we're financially free 25 years from now, our family will look a lot different than it looks today. And that's what motivates me. And it's a constant reminder to stay focused, to not also push past the limit that, so oftentimes we as entrepreneurs, sometimes we do, and we forget what's most important is not one more dollar, it's one more minute. So thank you so much for having us on the show.
Yeah, great to have you guys here. It's not always just one more dollar, right? It's one more minute. What's that focus of creating what's going to be truly move the dial for us in terms of like what's our fulfillment here in life. Great step forward, guys, for you is just go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/passport. Go there right now. Go ahead and sign up for it, and then take those next steps. Find out your investor DNA. Build your vision for there, so that way you can start looking at what is your plan need to look like. Thank you, Joey, Russ, for coming on to the show today.
Our pleasure.